South Korea braces for the worst yellow dust of the year flowing in from Mongolia and China with a level 2 caution crisis alert issued to all parts of the country. South Korea's job growth is seemingly picking up momentum, with last month's annual growth rate seeing an on-month increase for the first time in 10 months. Korea's Jikji, the world's oldest book printed using movable metal type, has been unveiled for the first time in half a century in Paris. Good afternoon. We start with the extreme yellow dust covering South Korea, the worst the country has seen so far this year. Authorities have issued a caution alert against yellow dust to all parts of the country. That is the second level of nation's 4-tier crisis alert system that's issued when there's risk of a large-scale disaster. Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
Yellow dust covered Beijing and other parts of China on Monday and Tuesday, with sand even piling up on streets, making it difficult for cars to pass. The yellow dust, which originated from Inner Mongolia, quickly spread to 18 regions in China, including Shanghai and Tianjin, on strong northwest winds. This is the 5th time that the country has experienced such extreme levels of yellow dust this year. China's Forestry Science Research Institute analyzed that yellow dust is appearing more often due to low rainfall in the region this year. And this is bad news for South Korea, which will see significant levels of yellow dust also flow into the country on Wednesday. During a press briefing on Tuesday, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo said the highest level of yellow dust so far this year is expected to hit the country. He advised that the elderly and people with respiratory conditions refrain from going outside, but should wear a mask if they do so. At the same time, Prime Minister Han ordered related ministries and local governments to promptly inform the public of the current situation and thoroughly implement safety measures according to the Yellow Dust Response Manual. He also called on daycare centers, kindergartens, and schools to either close or have classes shortened in order to thoroughly implement and guide safety measures to protect the children's health. He urged organizers and participants to take appropriate precautions in preparation for outdoor events such as sporting events and performances. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk-yeol has designated the eastern coastal city of Gangneung a special disaster zone following a destructive wildfire the day before. As a result of Wednesday's announcement, the city will be eligible for financial support from the government to be used for recovery work, relief funds for victims, and other benefits. Meanwhile, the Korea Forest Service dispatched helicopters and personnel to Gangneung on Wednesday to prevent any major flare-ups. 1 person died and 17 people were injured in Tuesday's fire, which began just after 8 a.m. and was extinguished some 8 hours later. Around 650 residents were forced to evacuate as the fire burned 380 hectares of the mountainous land, almost the size of 530 football fields. Nearly 100 structures, including 59 homes and Gangneung, a cultural asset dating from the Joseon dynasty, were damaged. President Yoon Suk-yeol formally named Cho Hyun-dong his new ambassador to the U.S. on Wednesday, with the U.S. also accepting Cho's appointment. Cho, who is a career diplomat, served as first vice minister of the Foreign Affairs Ministry prior to this role. He is expected to leave for Washington, D.C. in 2 days. The agreement process for the ambassadors between South Korea and the U.S. usually takes a couple of weeks, but the approval from Washington only took about 1 week, the quickest time ever for the two countries. This could be due to preparations for President Yoon's state visit to the U.S. for his summit with President Joe Biden. South Korea believes there is no substantial evidence of the U.S. spying on Seoul with malicious purposes amid such allegations stemming from the recent leaks of U.S. military documents. That's according to Principal Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-hyo, speaking to reporters as he arrived in Washington, D.C. for talks about preparations for an upcoming state visit to the U.S. by President Yoon Suk-yeol. It is in line with his previous remarks made before his departure that the defense chiefs of Seoul and Washington spoke on the phone and agreed that much of the purported information in the leaked documents was forged. The security official added that there will be no message by Seoul to Washington on the matter, given that the materials are fabricated by a third party. South Korea's job growth is seemingly picking up momentum, with last month's annual growth rate seeing an on-month increase for the first time in 10 months. But the employment figures for people in their 20s and below and those in their 40s saw a drop. Our economic correspondent Shin Ha-young has the numbers.
South Korea's 9-month decline for on-year job growth finally came to the end in March. According to data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday, there were 28.2 million people in employment last month, up around 469,000 from the previous year. This marks growth for the 25th consecutive month. However, it's the first time that growth exited the previous month in 10 months after consecutive declines were recorded beginning in June 2022. Statistics Korea says the data is in line with efforts to embrace a return to normal life under eased COVID-19 restrictions, which has resulted in an increase in outdoor activities. Job growth was driven by people aged 60 and above, which had the largest increase among all age groups with 547,000 on year. On the other hand, employment figures for those in their 20s and below, and also for those in their 40s, dropped from the previous year. New jobs were mainly created in the healthcare and social assistance sector, with 186,000 people hired, followed by 177,000 jobs in the accommodation and restaurant sectors. Jobs were lost in the manufacturing, retail, wholesale, and construction industries. Meanwhile, during a job task force meeting on Wednesday, the first vice finance minister announced that the government has selected several industries to focus on in order to bolster employment.
We will discuss specific plans to attract and train more workers, improve working conditions, and bolster support for job matching in 4 industries, including domestic construction, shipping, fisheries, and resource recycling sectors that have been experiencing a shortage of labor.
According to the minister, the number of job vacancies in February increased to around 210,000 after a slight decrease in January. He added that industries such as shipbuilding and healthcare are still having difficulties finding enough workers. During the meeting, ways to solve the labor shortage were discussed, and the government is planning to announce specific measures regarding the matter in the future. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
The International Monetary Fund has slashed South Korea's economic growth projection as it expects the global economy to face rocky economic recovery this year. Shin Se-byuk reports.
The International Monetary Fund on Tuesday cut its 2023 economic growth outlook for South Korea to 1.5%. That's down 0.2 percentage points from its estimate in January. It's also slightly below the Bank of Korea's projection of 1.6% made in February. The IMF did not explain the reasons behind the adjustment to its outlook, but it could be largely attributed to growing concerns that aggressive monetary tightening policies may impede global economic growth. In fact, earlier in the day, the BOK froze its key interest rate at 3.5% for the second time straight due to growing concerns over an economic slowdown. The 1% range projection for South Korea is on par with projections for other major economies. The IMF expects the U.S. economy to grow 1.6%, Japan's 1.3%, and Canada's to see 1.5% growth. But this would mark only the 5th time in history that South Korea's economic growth fell below 2%. The last time it grew below 2% was in 2020, when the Korean economy contracted by 0.7% during the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, the IMF said the global economy faces a rocky road to recovery in 2023, edging down its global economic outlook to 2.8%. That's 0.1 of a percentage point lower than its previous forecast. The organization said lingering global economic uncertainties, such as the war in Ukraine and persistently high inflation, are affecting growth. despite these grim figures, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, in a news conference on Tuesday, was rather optimistic about the outlook.
I do think the outlook is reasonable. It's certainly stronger, brighter than the last time we had the annual meetings in October. I wouldn't overdo the negativism about the global economy.
Yellen said a number of economies, including the United States, were proving resilient with strong labor markets, easing supply chain problems, and lowering energy costs. She also said the global financial system was also resilient due to reforms enacted after the 2008 financial crisis. 신세벽, Arirang News.
2 out of 3 Wall Street banks believe the U.S. Fed's key interest rate will reach the 5 to 5.25% range. The Bank of Korea's New York office last Friday conducted a survey of 12 U.S.-based investment banks, asking what level they believe the U.S. Fed's key interest rates will reach before hikes stop. 8 investment banks predicted the key interest rate will reach the 5 to 5.25% range. In response to the same question last month, only 3 of the banks predicted those figures, with most of the participants predicting a range of 5.5 to 5.75%. They cited instability in the banking sector due to the fallout from the Silicon Valley Bank collapse as the main reason for the latest outlook. A Korean national treasure and UNESCO-listed memory of the world, the Jikji book is now on a rare display in Paris, giving the public a chance to explore the history of the printing. Our Song Yoo-jin reports.
The world's oldest surviving book made using movable metal printing is about to meet the public again. Korea's Jikji 심체요절, a UNESCO memory of the World Heritage, will be shown to the public for the first time in 50 years. It'll be on display at the National Library of France from Wednesday local time as part of an exhibition on the history of printing. The book contains the teachings of great Buddhist priests. For the display, it has been opened on a page about non-duality, one of the key beliefs of Buddhism. The essence of non-dualism is that two things that seem separate from one another, such as good and evil, are in fact not separate at all. Jikji's history dates all the way back to the 14th century. The book was printed at the Heungdeok Temple in Chungcheongbuk-do Province's Cheongju City in 1377 during the Goryeo dynasty. That's 78 years before the Gutenberg Bible, the first complete book to be printed on movable metal type in Europe. In the late 19th century, Jikji was moved to France by then charge d'affaires of the French embassy in Seoul. In 1911, it was purchased by a French art collector through an auction. It was later donated to the National Library of France in 1952 and has been kept in the library storage since then, only going on display in 1972 and 1973. The exhibition in Paris will run until July 16th. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Scientists have confirmed that nuclear fusion is safe and eco-friendly without the risk of explosion or radioactive waste. And South Korea is gearing up to build a reactor that could commercialize nuclear fusion energy by 2035. Eun-jin has a story.
The Korea Superconducting Tokamak Advanced Research, or KSTAR, aims to make nuclear fusion power a reality. It uses magnetic fields to generate and stabilize ultra-hot plasma. Its success in maintaining the high-temperature plasma for more than 20 seconds was announced back in 2020. But the feat wasn't officially published until September 2022 after being peer-reviewed. During that time, the KSTAR team broke their own record, managing in 2021 to maintain plasma for 30 seconds at 100 million degrees Celsius. That's 7 times the temperature of the sun, hence its nickname, the artificial sun. This year, the Korea Institute of Fusion Energy now aims to maintain 100 million degrees Celsius for more than 50 seconds, with the ultimate goal of reaching 300 seconds by 2026.
If we can reach 50 seconds this year, the technology will only improve from there. We're expecting to go through big changes this year.
International competition to create fusion power for the future of clean and limitless energy is intensifying. But at the same time, the countries are also collaborating through ITER, the world's largest fusion experiment to build and operate the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. South Korea joined the 35-nation ITER consortium in late 2006, which also includes the European Union, the United States, Russia, China, Japan, and India. Meanwhile, South Korea has announced that it has begun preparations to build a nuclear fusion reactor before 2035, which is when ITER is expected to begin operations. After testing its capacity for producing electric power, the government aims to complete the reactor plant by 2040. South Korea's first fusion reactor will have a capacity of 500 megawatts.
The remaining time is to secure the technology. If the reactor is constructed as planned, it will begin operations around 2050.
Nuclear fusion energy is the future of clean energy, as it doesn't emit carbon dioxide, nor does it produce long-lasting nuclear waste. And its main fuel is abundant and accessible, as it can be easily extracted from seawater. With this technology to change the paradigm of global energy, South Korea hopes to lead the commercialization of fusion energy. Yoon, Arirang News.
On the biotech front, local researchers have come up with a groundbreaking method to reverse lung cancer cells to a point where they are treatable even after they spread to other organs. Our Cho Sang-min explains.
Lung cancer was the #1 cause of death among all cancer patients in South Korea in 2021, according to a government report. If detected early, lung cancer can be fully cured. But the survival rate plummets to 9% once the cancer spreads to other organs. To increase the survival rate, a South Korean research team has developed new technology that potentially enhances how the disease is treated. It's based on reversing cancerous cells into a condition where they can be treated. Before this technology was developed, cancerous cells or tumors in their early stages were not treatable with existing medication. And when they deteriorate, they spread to other parts of the body. The scientists used computer simulations to analyze lung cancer genes and discovered 3 key genes that can be reverted back to the non-spreading phase, which makes them treatable.
By inputting components of the lung cancer cells with the ability to spread to other organs into a computer simulation, we found the genetic combinations that can switch the cells back to the stage stripped of metastasis.
In addition, this method doesn't just apply to lung cancer. The researchers said the discovery is meaningful in that it paves the way for a new method to treat the disease.
Because this treatment method involves changing the cancer cells' characteristics, not killing them, it has a minimal effect on the normal cells. It's a new concept of treatment that's like safely treating diabetes or high blood pressure and maintaining health for a long time.
The team plans to commercialize this technology with a local bio company. They expect to carry out a clinical trial on people in the next 5 to 6 years. Cho Sang-min, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Myanmar, dozens of people have reportedly been killed in an airstrike launched by the military junta. According to the country's government in exile, the National Unity Government, roughly 100 people, including women and children, were killed in the village of Pajigi on Tuesday local time. Other reports put the death toll closer to 50. According to eyewitnesses, a military jet dropped a bomb on people that had gathered for the opening of a new facility built by the military government's opponents. A gunship helicopter then reportedly attacked the village for 20 minutes. Myanmar's military government has not commented on the allegations. Meanwhile, in Russia, day turned to night for some residents in the far eastern Kamchatka region when a volcano erupted, spewing ash as high as 20 kilometers into the sky. The eruption of the Shiveluch volcano took place on Tuesday local time. The resulting ash cloud covered about 108,000 square kilometers, an area approximately the same size as South Korea. It buried some villages in ash as deep as 8.5 centimeters. A red aviation notice was issued over fears the ash cloud could affect aircraft flying in the area. Experts say the volcano has since calmed, but haven't ruled out further ash clouds. The volcano is one of the biggest and most active in the region and last erupted in 2007. Turning over to Taiwan, where an unofficial badge worn by the self-governing island's Air Force has gone viral. It depicts a black bear holding a Taiwanese flag, punching Winnie the Pooh. The cartoon character has long been used to mock Chinese President Xi Jinping due to their supposed likeness, and the Chinese government has censored references to Winnie the Pooh in social media posts. The new badge has become a symbol of defiance against Beijing, which has conducted several days of military drills around the island. The drills come after Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen met with United States House Speaker Kevin McCarthy last week. And finally, a pair of Michael Jordan's sneakers have been sold for a record-breaking $2.2 million. The Jordan 13s were sold in an online Sotheby's auction on Tuesday for the highest price ever paid for a pair of sneakers. They were worn by the basketball legend during the athlete's final season in Game 2 of the 1998 NBA Finals. Jordan scored 37 points in that game as his team, the Chicago Bulls, went on to win 93-88 against Utah Jazz. The shoes are in good condition and feature 2 large signatures by Jordan. Last September, a jersey worn by Michael Jordan in Game 1 of the same final went under the hammer for $10.1 million. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Avoid spending time outdoors today. The entire country is seeing unbearably high levels of dust, with dust alerts issued in most parts of the country, with levels that are 7 times higher than normal in the capital area. Now, northwesterly winds brought not only high levels of yellow dust, but also cold air to the country, with a cold weather advisory issued west of inland areas this morning. Meanwhile, dry air alerts remain in place in the east along with strong winds, so please take extra precautions against wildfires. Now, temperatures stay below norms all day, with big temperature differences more than 10 degrees Celsius across Korea. Afternoon highs are 2 to 4 degrees lower than yesterday under sunny skies that are covered with that yellow dust. Air quality remains unhealthy until tomorrow. Then rain is in the forecast from the south, spreading to the rest of the country by the weekend. Meanwhile, the temperature returns to normal tomorrow afternoon. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.